Hey, y'all, welcome. Thanks for joining me again here on Learning with Lear. My name is Ryan Verdon. I'm the founder and executive director of Lear Cultural Coaching. You can find out more about me and us, as always, by checking out the website. But as you can see, we have a very special guest this week. This is White George. I came across White George. Actually, my brother-in-law sent me his Instagram and was like, man, you got to get on this guy. He says a lot of the stuff that you do, his page is gold. And so I looked and I was like, hey, he's walking across the country, which is super, super cool just in and of itself. But more than that, he was visiting HBCUs and talking about how racism and white supremacy has kept him from the beauty of so much in our country and in our world. And so I reached out to him just a few days ago and was like, hey, man, what are the chances we could talk? And here we are. White George is here joining us. So thank you for that. And I'm going to be quiet and turn it over to you, man. Yeah, tell people like, so you're walking across the country visiting HBCUs.
Yeah.
How did this happen?
The shortest version I can tell you, it started in 2001, I guess you'd say, with a splinter in my finger. And that splinter led to cellulitis. I had surgery and almost lost my arm. I have a massive scar and they took muscle tissue out. And they gave me a lot of pain pills. And I went down a 10-year spiral addicted to hydrocodone. And I was addicted to it. I had to start stealing to feed the habit. I became a very accomplished jewelry thief. Got caught, sentenced to 13 years in prison.
Oh,
The single splinter in my index finger, I'm now in prison. And it was there that I started sharing a cell in 23-1 lockdown with men of other cultures and communities. And I remember my first cellmate, Larry, looked at me and goes, "Are you racist?" I'm kind of like, "Yeah, kind of am." He goes, "Can I ask you some questions? We got nothing better to do." And I was like, "Can I ask you questions about being black?"
yeah.
Like, so we talked for 2 weeks, dude, while he was my cellie. We talked, we communicated, we heard each other, we understood each other. And that's one of those seminal moments you don't realize in your life how profound it's going to be at that moment.
Yeah.
Larry was just people, man. He broke things down for me in a way nobody ever had. And I think the experiences in prison, I didn't realize at the time, was softening my heart and opening my mind. Like, it took a little time when I got out, but I could see the world matched up with what I'd been told by men's experiences that I met in prison. And it just got to a point, it bothered me so bad I couldn't stay silent any longer.
Yeah. Man, so when you say a little bit more about, you were just like, yeah. He's like, "Are you racist?" You're like, "Yeah, I kind of am." What did that mean to you at the time?
Well, it's funny. People that grew up racist, we don't talk about what it's like to be racist, right? We're not vulnerable to the public. People are often shocked that I admit openly I grew up racist, because I think that transparency is the only way I can have trust and credibility in a community and culture that I once was oppressive to or I thought down on, right?
Right.
The only way we can heal and we get through this is to be open. And I've often said Black America is what healed my racist heart. The irony of that is just so delicious.
Right, right.
But it's I growing up, for me, racism, it wasn't like I hate you because you're black or anything like that. It was, if, let's say, in my neighborhood, right, I've got 6 cars in the yard put up on blocks and I hadn't mowed it yet since last year. But a Black American family moves in down the street and I'm blaming them for my low property value, not because I'm white trash. Right? It was a way to not be accountable. It was a way to look down on somebody else to feel better about our own shitty life.
Yeah.
And it was just, if you could hate on them, you could not have to deal with the hate you felt inside of you.
Man, it's crazy. So can you talk a little bit about, and this is going a little bit different than I thought, which is great. We said, like, we ain't going to script this, which this is a real ass conversation, y'all. Can you talk a little bit about, like, has your understanding of racism shifted since then? Like, I know you just said, like, being locked up softened your heart. You could see the world differently. Talk a little bit about what shifted for you.
Well, one of the things, a couple of different things I've thought about over time is, one, my character was flawed, right? I had to
That takes a
admit,
lot to be able to say, man. There's not a lot of people that can say, like, yeah, I had it myself messed up.
and then you got to figure out how to heal from it too and change it. And that's not a switch you flip. That's a journey you have to want to take, and it's difficult. The second thing I realized, and no one ever taught me this growing up, is that you can't be a Christian, a true Christian, believe in God, and be racist. Those two things cannot simultaneously exist in your heart and mind. To say anything, I'll call you a liar to your face. It just can't. And when I realized that, I'm like, who am I serving? My own hate, or am I serving my creator? And it's things like that just got a hold of me. Like I wanted to be different. The weight of the hate eats your soul.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be an asshole anymore. I want
Yeah.
to be a lovable guy.
Yeah. Talk about one of the things that I really love and I dig, as I was, like I said, we just came across each other a few days ago, so I haven't made it through your whole IG, but I've seen some of the themes about um the benefits that you've gotten as you've undertaken this shift, and now as you're visiting HBCUs and walking, like, talk a little bit about how that has benefited you, right? It's because it wasn't just it's not just about, well, let me go back to what you're saying. So that family with the car up on the blocks, and all they have is that they're not black, right? They're not that. Like you said, like it's not me, it's their fault. That's like that's built into our system. Particularly, oh, look at that. We can get it closer. um,
Hold on.
that's like working class. I grew up working class. And that's what we were supposed to believe, right? We're supposed to believe, oh, we're white and we ain't living the good life because of other people. But the reality is, we're not living the good life because of how divided we are from other people. And it was wealthy white people that got us like this. And so, can you? I don't know if you've experienced that. Can you like talk about that a little bit?
Hold on. I'm trying to fix my camera for you, bro. I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
got you.
I jacked all up on the stand. Hold on. What the heck? Okay, there we go. All right. Repeat your question.
I was just saying about how you said something that really, like, it speaks to me when you're talking about how, you know, who we would all call white trash, or like poor whites. That was me growing up, right? My neighborhood, all that, and it was, at least you could look down on other people. I saw a lot of people, a lot of racism in my neighborhood because of that, right? Like, hey, we're here. I ain't washed my ass in a week and a half, but at least I'm not that. It's the other people over there on the other side of the town that are the problem. They're dirty, they're bad. Like, I mean, I knew people who were robbing and stealing, but the criminals were the ones on the north side type shit. And I'm wondering how, as you've gone about this, how has it? You talk about the benefits of getting rid of that mindset, right? Of realizing, like, hey, nobody's got me held down. Really, I'm gaining so much from resisting this story that I've been told.
It's when I say the weight of the hate, the lack of self accountability that racism affords people is so dangerous.
Mm,
Second thing, racism is the greatest Ponzi or pyramid scheme ever invented. Racism would die the moment they stop recruiting new members. You think about that.
yeah,
It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a lie. It's an entire financial, emotional, mental scam that we recruit because it's easier, because we don't have to be accountable. And we don't have to be accountable. Well, that opens us up to all kinds of atrocities and being sociopathic and not caring who we hurt. I think that some of the biggest benefits are the amount of grace and mercy and love and kindness extended to me by the Black American community in this country. And I've been all over the country. I've been to 27 or 28 historically Black college university campuses. I've been to homecomings. I've been to classics. I've met with university presidents, students, professors, alum. I've just had the wildest ride this last year, and my eyes have opened up to so much more about what's going on in the country. And it's like I see colors brighter. Things sound sweeter to my ear. Things taste sweeter in my mouth. Like my heart is full of love and empathy, something that it hadn't always been. And the only difference in my life is I just wanted to get rid of that oppressive, biased, prejudicial, stereotypical ideology that I had. And when I did that, it's like the world just
right.
opened up. And it's hard to put into words, but yeah, my life is a million times different and better than I ever thought it could be.
That's such a beautiful thing. You mentioned HBCUs and college presidents. Talk to us. Why HBCUs?
I've been a fan of Black American history since I was 7, when I first discovered encyclopedias for my birthday, and I found George Washington Carver because my friends call me GW and GW Carver. And I was like, somebody with the same initials? That is rare. You don't see
Right.
GW's names, right? So I've always had an affinity for Black American history. But it wasn't until a few years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I noticed that these HBCUs were the common theme of so much of Black American history and the contributions they've given this country. So I spent a couple of months researching it to make a video. And that
Mm,
video did like 500,000 views, like an 8-minute video on TikTok, no less.
okay.
And making that video, I just fell in love. Something clicked in my heart and mind. They were like synced together. When I read Harvard has a $50 billion endowment, and all the 101 HBCUs combined have a $5 billion endowment. That's saying Harvard is worth 1,000 of these historically black colleges. Ain't no way that's true.
Hell
And for some
no.
reason, that statistics just hooked me. It made me mad. It was like, I got to figure out something. And my life
Yeah.
changed with that.
So what, like, when you were thinking, what did you figure out? What would, like, talk to us about that?
Well, I started to see how these schools were critically underfunded. Money, billions and billions have been stolen from them by states. The land grant universities, I think, tune of like $16 billion in 12 states. Tennessee
Absolutely.
State being the worst with $2.5 billion owed to them. And Governor Bill Lee wrote a check for, I think, 250 million right off the bat to try to quell it, buy his way out. That ain't working. And yet they're holding Tennessee State accountable for all this infrastructure problem. I just saw the politics of it. I saw a white politician, senator who's like 80 years old, Tennessee State Senate, who works a mile away from Tennessee State and has never once been to that campus, a mile away, yet he controls the purse strings for this massive institution. Heisman Trophy winner Coach Eddie George is the football coach.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like a small little school. And I just saw the way they were done. I saw the way people perceived HBCUs, especially in the white community, thought they were dumber. They couldn't get into white schools. I understand why they exist. I understand why they're so powerful now, why they're so beautiful. And I want to change how people perceive that, their perception and perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wild. I seen the stat. I don't remember exactly, but it might not be exactly right, but it's something like um 3/4 of black women CEOs or like directors of corporations are graduated from Spelman College in Atlanta, something like that. Or like it was a hugely disproportionate number. And you're absolutely right. I have an education background, and I would hear educators all the time say like, oh yeah, Spelman, for example, or Morehouse, or even Howard, like they're great, but don't you want to go to the U, or wouldn't you want to go to, somewhere in the UC system or UW Madison? I'm from the Midwest, right? So like you want to go to one of those schools, right? And it's like just wild the way that well, in my analysis, the way whiteness operates to say like, you really think this is better, especially for young black students, to not go and not have to worry about whiteness in the same ways. It was just wild to me. And so yeah, I was drawn to that part of your story too, of like how HBCUs became part of like your mode for raising awareness.
Yeah.
um
They changed my life, brother. I mean,
yeah,
I'm walking across the country in support of raising money for scholarships for HBCU students. I'm like, I gave up everything in my life and I'm devoting literally everything, moved into my pickup. And I'm spending the next 6 months of my life walking 3,000 miles to get attention, to draw attention to this.
yeah,
I have bigger plans than just this. There's actually a whole, what's the word, evil scheme I have going. And you can ask me about that later, but this is just one part of what I'm trying to do. Like
yeah.
I'm a man army, and this is the only way I know how to attack it.
And you're doing, and this is for, I think, another thing for white people. So I do a lot of work around like racial justice work, anti-racism work, and one of the things that I hear is white folks will always say, well, I don't know what to do, right? And I think your story is a perfect example of like, choose something and do something. Just do something, and you'll be able to make a difference in where you're at. I also think your story is instructive because while you're saying like, I'm raising money for HBCUs, you are very clear about how you are benefiting from it, right? Like you're not trying to save anybody. You're not saying anything other than to white people saying, wake up from this ignorance. We are keeping ourselves from so much beauty and connection and community off of this really poisonous ideology, white supremacy and racism. Which brings me to the next thing I do want to talk to you about, because this idea, and I've heard you talk on your page a lot about Black American history. I think that's the term that I hear you use often. And right now, Black American history is under attack in whole states where you're going to be at, right? Where a lot of these HBCUs are. It is illegal to tell the truth about what happened. And so I'm wondering, as you've gone on this experience and over this last year, how have you come in? Have you come into contact with anybody that has, I mean, obviously you have. I'm wondering if you could tell us some of your highlights about that.
I get death threats. Don't come back to Arkansas where I'm from. I get called a race traitor, a white savior, which is my favorite because I am white. I saved my own ass. So yeah, I'm a white savior by definition. That
I like
irritates.
that.
Yeah, I get a lot of hate. The thing is, it's backed up with facts, and sometimes I get bored and I'll take on the trolls a little bit. But for the most part, people have hacked and got my cell phone number and sent me stuff. And like I said, I did time in prison, and I could hold my own. And I have a lot of friends in very high and low places because of both. And so I don't really worry about that.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, it's funny. I think some white people are jealous because, okay, here's how the best way to say it. Like I look at a lot of the HBCU alumni I talk to. It's like there are some rooms you can't speak in that I can. And there's a lot of rooms in your community that most white people cannot speak in that I can. I said, that makes me dangerous because I can bridge a gap.
Right.
That makes me a threat to some people. Instead of something useful, they perceive it as a threat, which again we could just boil that all the way down to just how stupid racism is because that's what it comes down to. But
yeah, and it's the connection, right? It's the community. Once you're in right relation, I'd say that, and if you're watching this, you know that I say this often. It's when you're in right relationship with people, and you're in community, is you get treated as such more often than not. And behavior is communication. So like you said, if somebody is doing something, there's a reason why they're doing something. They're hurt somewhere along the way, or they've been failed somewhere along the way. And I think a lot what whiteness does, what white supremacy does, is it keeps us from that community and that connection. And therefore, you said it right there, like the jealousy piece of like, damn you. And it's not that you're, got X amount of followers or you got this amount of money or it's you can be in relationship with other human beings that I cannot be. And fundamentally, that's what humans want to be, is in relationship with people, in relationship with creation. Right. And that's why this might surprise you. I don't there's not a lot of Christians that will have conversations with me, but because not a lot of the Christians I talk to are as clear as you are about you can't be racist, you can't support these things and be Christian at the same time. Right. And so I think that's when we get to that spiritual aspect of unlearning whiteness, it gets hard for people.
It's funny. I've brought that up to people I know from my past that still hold on racist ideology to a degree. They go to church and I bring that up about it. I was like, it's kind of hard to believe in God and be racist. They're like, well, that's why I go to church. They just laugh it off, kind of like, but I know it gigs them a little bit.
Yeah.
It has to. Like it's going to weigh on their mind. And that's the point of telling them.
Right.
Be a rock in their shoe, just that tiny little pebble in their shoe.
Yeah. What's your favorite story? Tell, like, what's the favorite story? If you're like, hey, I can't wait to tell everybody, or when this is all over, I'm going to tell this story.
Well, when it's all over, for one thing, I want to do this walk. I want to look at America and go, this was DEI and you didn't even know it. Like this whole walk, because I'm supporting Black-owned businesses. I've got people wanting to come out, like interns, some other people to help that are not the same color as me. Like this is truly want to be a moving community. And I want to look at America because DEI, it's become this shoving down people's throat who you can hire, why you have to hire them. And DEI is not just that. That is one tiny thing that's been focused on.
Right.
I'm a direct recipient of DEI everywhere I go because these historically Black colleges and universities are inviting me on, a white guy. They're being diverse and inclusive and equitable and letting me in, open their arms to me. And that's all that other communities in America without the word white in front of their name want in return. Is
Absolutely.
that something I'm directly been in prison for that briefest of moments. I felt what it was like to be a minority, being white. Mm-hmm. And even though it's nowhere in comparison to what so many of the communities go through with that, let me be clear, that tiny little taste, I didn't like that at all.
Right.
And I started to see things. I walk in places now, I get a lot of stares because I'm the turd in the punch bowl. Like I'm walking through downtown Newark, New Jersey, today there's not a lot of white people. But people smiled. I have a big smile on my face, but at the same time, I'm that strange white dude. What is he doing here? Like I realize I'm fish out of water, but I'm comfortable with that.
Right.
understand what it feels like for a whole other class of people to have to go through that to some degree, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
life experiences help shape, why I think the way I do. But when you bring how does racism hurt white people? Man, you're just living an ugly life. You're living a lie. You're
Isn't
living
it that simple? It's like it's really that simple.
you're living a truth that's convenient for you, but is it real? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Racism is I call it a mental cancer. You just made me think of something. Racism is no different than alcoholism, being addicted to opiates. I was addicted to opiates and did drugs because I couldn't cope. I didn't have the skills to cope. So it allowed me to escape, right? If
Yeah.
anybody's ever done drugs understands that. Racism is the same thing. It's almost like an addiction to a flawed ideology, that mental cancer, because it allows you to not have to cope with it, being accountable with your own insecurities and inadequacies. It's easier just to blame somebody else. Like, why does somebody care if they have braids in their hair?
Right.
Why does it even matter? Why is somebody so caught up on somebody else's hairstyle that
To
they
the
want
point to the
to?
point that they won't let them like graduate or go to school or do things like that, like or even hire them, right? Like the number of the things to your point that where the insecurities of whiteness and how they manifest in some of the most foolish and absurd ways. And then somehow we never actually return to, wow, that white person must be really hurt right now, like to be doing that. Like they need something that's the problem. But somehow we spend so much energy on externalizing that, right? When really the focus needs to be internal. And then even thinking about, so I'm a historian, so I'll share a little bit with you because we're just getting to know each other a little bit. Uh, for me, how your situation was like in prison, mine was actually through learning. I had graduated with a bachelor's degree in social studies, history focus, and had passed the master teacher licensure like thing in Minnesota, one of the hardest states to get a license in the country. And so I was like, oh, I'm feeling good, you know what I mean? All this. And there was a blind gentleman on my college campus who would have students read to him. I found out later he was doing that subversive. He'd give him like radical texts and stuff to read. But I went up to him and I was like, hey, how you doing? And he was reading A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. And I didn't know half, maybe even 75% of the things in that book, right? And one of the things I didn't know that's in that book is the way that Bacon's rebellion was used to create white people and divide us from other people who had material interests, right? And so that anger at like, wait, I'm supposed to believe this about myself and about other people because a couple hundred years ago, y'all was getting your ass kicked by people that look like me and and were poor like me and all the people around me. And now I'm supposed to hate them because y'all wanted to keep your stuff. I was so frustrated and angry by and it took me some time to get to a place where I could talk about it without being motivated by anger. Right now, I feel like similar to you, like unlearning some of the lessons that whiteness has tried to teach me has resulted in a healthier, happier, much more aligned life. You know what I mean? And my ability to be in right relationship with people from different races. Um, and so I think about that often in terms of what is the most simple way we can talk to other white people, particularly white men? Like, there's not a lot of white men. There's something about masculinity too that's like you can't admit, like the way that you did, like, hey, I had a character flaw, or this is that. There's something about that about white men that we just have a hard time talking about that. Have you experienced that? What are your
Oh
thoughts?
yeah. God, yeah. For one, most time the women in our lives would rather see us fall on our swords than fall to our knees in tears, right? And we're so conditioned to that
Yeah.
ego, insecurity, pride, to not be wrong. And there's so much peer pressure that goes along with racism. I met a gentleman a few months ago at a hotel, and he was talking about he's from up here in Jersey, believe it or not. And he was going to somewhere with his friends, five guys in a truck, and they were all using the N word. And he wasn't, and he was kind of getting like, hey man, why you don't use that word? Like he was getting peer pressure to use it because if he said it now, he's in that club, right? Everybody's got
Right.
that on each other. And he goes, it just, if for some reason he said that just bothered him. And now he's having a conversation with me about it. I've had probably 40 men have conversations, I'm probably over that now, being vulnerable to me about their racism. A lot of times, like, how? What do because there's no book, there's no switch. I mean, hell, everybody's racist in traffic. I hate Dodge Ram diesels and Chevy Malibu and Toyota Priuses. We're all racist in traffic, right? Um, Subconscious bias is the hardest thing, and because I'll fight that the rest of my life, but I'm aware of it,
Right.
right? So when I see it, I know what it is. People live in oblivion. Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
They don't. Why don't say racist things? I don't treat people racist. It's what you think, you speak. What you speak, you become. And those thoughts permeate. And when I was told by some black guys, he's like, "We see you coming down the street. We're crossing the street. You just have that energy about you." That bothered me, man. That
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not. I'm a teddy bear. I'm a lover. I'm just a happy guy, and that weighed on me. Like,
Yeah.
out of all the ththings you could have told me or called me, that got me.
Say more about that. Why did it get you?
Because I don't see myself that way. Like
Mm.
I'm a very positive, extroverted, happy, telling jokes. That's just my personality, and that people would completely read it wrong. Like I'd be like, ask anybody who knows me. They're like, man, we don't feel that from you.
Right.
I'm like, what flaw in my character is making strangers feel this about me?
Mm.
That just weighed on me. That just nobody likes to be judged,
Right.
right?
Right.
Being judged unfairly. Hello, the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And I also feel like, and you may agree with this, once you separate racist and whiteness, and sometimes it feels like the matrix has been revealed to me. Like I've stepped outside the world that so many people I grew up with are stuck in. Like I see the world, I see how the systemic racism, the 13th Amendment, how all these things around history we have done that have just put our boots on the necks of Black America.
Yeah.
I
Well, and I
see.
think, yeah, it's when you, for me, I'll speak for me, but I resonate with that in that, and I think you'll agree with this. It's not to say like, oh, there's something special about you or me, or that we have some secret sauce or something. We got bit by the spider, and now all of a sudden we can shoot webs out our hands. But there's something when you just get to a place, and I think it's the part where you're talking about the vulnerability and accountability of just saying like, hey, I don't like where I'm at right now, and I wanna understand how I got here and what can I do differently, right? And so when you don't take it personally, then you can see sort of you can remove yourself. You're not invested in whiteness in the same way. And then you can see things like, "Oh, damn, the 13th Amendment bans slavery except for in prison, and then now we have all these bogus ass laws and they're only applying to the very same people who we enslaved." Like that shit don't make sense. And you're not invested in that anymore. You can just objectively see that. Um, and then also and the ability to say there's something also too about uh being able to own that without feeling like you're personally responsible for it either. Right? Because that's a bad place for white people to be in.
The
It's not
guilt.
saying that and then say, "Oh, now I have to go do something for other people." The reality is, and like you said, like, let's heal ourselves, and then we can show up and work together to create a world that's better. And that's the only way we're gonna get there. We can't do anything for anybody else, right? Like, you got to be
Especially,
able to have the hard conversation with yourself.
yeah, and that's the thing. I'll say this, and I need to say it more. We never have. I don't know if you grew up racist or not. Like I grew up full blown. I wasn't KKK, none of that idiot stuff, but I was pretty entrenched in my ideology. I don't know if you were.
I grew up where my parents were like, "Hey, we don't judge anybody by the content of their character or by the color of their skin, the content of your character." But I there was people around me and certainly people in my family who were throwing the N word around, people in my neighborhood. So like I was surrounded by it. Northeast Minneapolis actually had been in the news a couple times because we were like a safe haven for Nazis. Like literal Nazis would move there because we had a lot of Eastern European immigrants. So, yeah, so slightly different, but not totally.
But come and see, being able to be open because we don't have conversations with racists. Like you don't
Right.
have a panel of five white guys who are racist and we're all being vulnerable to a crowd of Black Americans because that's scary. Last September 14th, a night that changed my life, I stood on stage at the Apollo Theater in front of a filled with Black Americans. They didn't expect a white guy to come out on stage to a cold opening where I told two jokes, made them laugh, had to tell them to calm down. This is a history lesson. And then I proceeded to tell them I grew up racist. You could have heard a pin drop in that
Yeah, I
theater.
bet.
Nailed it. Mike dropped him, nailed it. It was great. I came off stage and I feel this woman's hands on my shoulder. And she said, "You did an amazing job." And I turned around. I was like, "Oh my God, I had a crush on you in college." It was Jasmine Guy, Whitley from a different world. Right there on stage, somebody did a great job. So she's hiding behind my shoulders while we're watching some of the performances. And I met Akeem Hardison, Dwayne Wade, and
Yeah.
Daryl Bell. Met them, and then the band EU doing the butt. They were in my dressing room for a while.
Oh, wow.
And this is all because I started talking about HBCUs. Like going out on stage at the Apollo is a very intimidating thing being a white guy. Let
Oh,
me
I'm
just tell
sure.
you, intimidating. But I went out there and I told the truth. And I was transparent. The girl I was dating at the time was like freaked out, like, "Oh God, please, what this is not, we're never getting out of here." And
Yeah.
but since then there were people in the crowd that a very Olympic gold medalist, one of the greatest track stars in the world, was there that night, and he still messaged me yesterday. That's where we kind of bonded because he saw the speech.
Yeah.
It was. I, it's just one of those things that affirms that I'm doing the right thing.
Right. Right.
Like, and sometimes doing the right thing can cost you everything, and I'm okay with that.
I think, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to sit with that, like that part right there. I want everybody to say, like, sometimes doing the right thing can cost you everything, but you gotta be okay with that. You gotta be okay with it because it will also get you everything too.
It depends on your,
But
yeah. It's funny. Like I'm walking across America, 3,000 miles from New York to California. It's taken me 6 months of my life. I think anybody can pretty much physically walk. It may take them a year, but
right,
everybody can. But not everybody's willing to give up every modern convenience, relationships, stimulation, because there's so much alone time and introspection and pain. Like that's the stuff I don't think people are willing to go through, but they can walk.
right,
Not willing to give up every convenience known to man for the most part.
man. Salute to you for that, for real. Um, I was gonna ask you something about it had to talk to it was I remember about being on stage at the Apollo. And you said this previously too about being this is a DEI experience for you, right? Like in terms of you're the only white person. And I think one of the connections I like to make for white people, and I'd love for you to just respond to this, or if it resonates, or if you have a different opinion or experience. I think what whiteness has done to us, that lack of accountability to other human beings, right? To like be told that these other human beings are not, and you therefore you can do whatever you want to them. That eats away at our souls. Like I firmly believe that, and I think we've done that for so long that we anticipate other human beings are going to treat us in the same way. And the reality is, they don't. Like you said, what they're really asking for is like, hey, just don't do the like stop doing this to us, and we just want to live. We ain't trying to flip the script on you or do the same thing to you. It's not like now it's our turn. It's really just like, can we live and can y'all, give back some of the stuff you stole? Like, so I would love to hear your response to that, or just like, have you experienced that?
I will say I think Black America is the most forgiving community and culture in the history of this country, maybe in the world. And I've talked to women with tears in their eyes who explain how forgiving they are and how many times they've been burned and said, "Please don't burn us too." Like that just,
Right,
I mean, that just, I could not betray that. And hearing that, and I realized they are forgiving. I'm somebody that came from the oppressor side of the court, and they've welcomed me with open arms. Like,
Right.
I don't need any more proof. We prove scientifically, medically that there is no difference between black people and white people. It's a modern construct of the 1600s that was created. So, the other thing
Yeah.
too, sometimes black Americans get annoyed with this, but no two people on earth have the same amount of melanin. They are just like fingerprints.
Yep.
No two people have the exact same shade. So we all have melanin. Even albinos have them to some degree, all the way to Kenyans, beautifully
Right.
dark. So we're all unique. And the other thing is that God created all men equal, right? We're all, the word says, the Bible, and common sense says it too. And then how you can look down upon that person. I did it. I mean, trust me, I'm coming for that. But so the fact, I think, looking down through history, white people have done everything they can for fear that Black America was going to rise up, like you just said, right?
Yeah.
Jim Crow, segregation. But realistically, white America picked this fight. And we don't like
100%.
we don't like the fight that's coming our way. And a lot of white people don't think we should have to extend the olive branch. Like that's a pride and ego thing. I'm like, how could we not extend the olive branch? And the other thing, being pragmatic, Black America has about a $1.3 trillion and climbing economic power. That's the 17th largest economy in the world. It exists within this United States. I'm telling you, if Black Americans ever get together and really unite, they'll flip elections. I mean, because that is a huge block.
Well, and that's why a lot of white people are trying to keep them from voting and from all this. You know what I'm like doing everything they can. That writing's on the wall,
Yep.
right? Like
I
they're
kind of hope, I
trying.
kind of hope I live to see it. I kind of hope I live to see it.
Look, I'm with you. I'm with you. George, thank you so much for joining us. I got a couple more things I want to make sure my audience hears from you. One, how can they support you? How can they support and donate? Or well, yeah, what do you need?
Are you going to put the socials up in here? Because
Yep,
if you
I'll
go,
put your Instagram up. We'll put that. So just follow, share. What helps
yeah,
you the
follow,
most?
share, and I even have a GoFundMe on the bio of my Instagram. I tell people if they donate $1 for every 1,000 miles I walk, that's $3. But I figure I've got 350,000 followers between my two platforms, so if just a fraction of those do, that's one way to do it. But again, like and share, comment because it drives the algorithm and helps. No, I don't get paid on views on Instagram. I don't get paid a penny, but my video sometimes seems to reach the right set of eyeballs.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
you know what I mean? It's a little different. So that's how. If you like Black American history, you like somebody kind of tongue in cheek makes fun of racist and has the goofiest stories from walking across the country. And I have a Hall of Fame dad bod, in the Santa Claus.
Look at that. Hall of Fame dad bod. I'm with it. All right, well, we'll definitely make sure we put you can check out the Instagram and TikTok, follow White George on both platforms, donate to the GoFundMe. Man, thank you so much for finding time on your journey to chop it up with me. I'm super excited. I hope we can keep building.
All right, buddy. It's nice meeting you, Ryan.
Yeah, you too. I'll make sure you get this so you can share it out and all that too.
All right, buddy. I appreciate it.
Peace, George.
Bye.